Welcome to this edition of Cooking in Mr. Durazi's Kitchen. For today's recipe, we're making garlic herb roasted chicken parts. Sometimes you want to roast a whole bird, other times you just want to do it in parts. So today we're going to go through a real simple recipe that uses a minimal amount of ingredients to make a really flavorful, really wonderful dish. Hope you enjoy it, hope you try it. So for today's recipe, we're actually going to start by breaking down our chicken. So we have our chicken here. We're just going to start by separating the legs and thighs. I've left it unmuted because I want you to hear some of those sounds, like the popping of the joints. We're going to split down the back, right? Just cut the skin, and like a T, we're going to cut right across these two pieces right here, which are the oysters. Right, about a 1 ounce piece of meat, but it's a really, really tasty piece. So I want to make sure we get that, and I'll show you that in a second. So we're just going to continue with our boning knife, right? See, I'm notching inside of, there's a little divot right there. We're going to get inside of that and make sure we get that oyster completely out. And there is our leg quarter. That's the leg and the thigh. Going to repeat on the same side, again, using the tip of the knife to dig in and then my finger to just pop out the oyster. Really, really important to make sure you get all of that off. It's a really tasty morsel of chicken that you don't want to leave behind. All right, so you're looking for the joints, right? Whenever we're doing this, you're making sure you get to the joints. Get into the joints, everything will kind of separate really easily. Make sure the skin is pulled back nice and tight over the breasts, because we want to make sure we keep that skin intact as much as possible. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove the wings. So again, you're going to find the joint that's right up against the breast and the wing. Just get the knife right in between the joints, and that'll remove fairly easily. All right, we're going to get both of those off. There's our full wing, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that in just a few seconds. Go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Again, you see it comes really, if it comes off easily, you're doing it the right way. If you're meeting with resistance, it's not. You can see right in between the joints, pops right off. So now we're going to go ahead and we have to remove the breast. So what we're going to do is like just separate these pieces right here, just to kind of keep that separated from the carcass. It'll make it come off just a little easier. I'm going to run the knife right down the back, okay? Right down the center, and what we're looking for is the keel bone. That's the bone that separates the two breasts. And using the tip of the knife right up against the keel bone, should come off pretty easily. If you follow the bone structure, it'll come off really, really simply. Again, look for the joint. Once you locate the joint, you may find a piece of the wishbone when you're doing this. If you find that, that's okay. Just cut right under it, and then you'll be able to separate the breast right off. Take that off. Right, and you can see what we're being left with here is our carcass, but really important is we're trying to make sure we don't leave any meat behind. We want to try and get all of that meat separated off. Okay, so now we go ahead, we turn it over, and we're just going to repeat the same motion. So tip of the knife, again, right along the keel bone. Just a few shallow cuts, and it should separate, like I said, fairly easily. Again, the big things here is we're making sure we keep that skin intact, and then there you go, there's our separated breast. We take that right off, and what we're left with is our carcass. All right, now the carcass we're going to use, because we can use that carcass to make some chicken stock. Right, so we're really using every single piece of the bird as we go through this. Always working clean, try and get all those pieces off. Notice I'm wearing gloves, right? It's really about sanitation. Want to make sure we're not getting anybody sick here. So there we see some pieces. We have to do a little bit more work here, but that's the first step. And that carcass, again, going to use that for some stock. So now we want to separate the thigh and the leg. So you're going to look for, there's a white fat line. You find that line, it generally is right over where the joint is, and it'll just really simply kind of go right through the joint. Definitely want to clean up any excess fat at this point, right? Any really loose pieces of fat and a lot of excess skin, you can go ahead and kind of clean that up. So same thing, if you turn it over, you'll see the fat line that separates, get rid of that excess fat. You can see that fat line right there that he's pointed out. Take the knife and then right through, and that will separate nice and easily. And there we have Our drumsticks are done. Our thighs, now the thighs, we're leaving these bone in. We could take the bone out for some other things, but for what we're using it for, we're gonna leave the bone in, get really, really great flavor. All right, so at that point now, we have just a few things left to look at. So here's our board, right, with the carcass, which we're gonna use for stock. Right, our thighs and our breast meat. The breasts have actually gone ahead and separated. I've gone and cut those into 2 pieces just to make that a little bit easier, a little smaller. The 2 drumsticks, we'll keep those separated. And then down on the bottom of the pan, again, I talked about the thigh, and here at the bottom we have our wings, which we'll separate those because we're gonna go ahead, I've gone and separated them into sections, and we'll use those to make some wings, which you'll see in a future video. Put those on the side. Again, really important here, we're using all of the bird, right? Every single piece. Even those wing tips, we're going to use those in the stock as well. So it's really important that we're not wasting anything. We're really respecting the bird. All right, so now that we have our chicken all cut and ready to go, let's take a look at the rest of the ingredients for our recipe. I have 2 onions, some garlic, some salt, pepper, some butter, have some rosemary, which we'll go ahead and turn that around so it's not upside down. There you go. Have a little bit of thyme, and then we have our oil, which is our grapeseed and canola blend. So now from here, I've sliced the onion, right? So our onions are sliced. We're gonna go ahead and drizzle with about a tablespoon of oil, right? Maybe a little bit less. Just wanna get those nice and coated. Gonna add a pinch of salt, or maybe 2. Want to make sure those taste good. A couple of cracks of pepper. Make sure that that's really nicely seasoned. All right, go ahead and give that a good toss. Make sure that it's all well coated. So you either toss it in the bowl like I just showed, or you can go ahead and use a rubber spatula or a spoonula as I'm using here, and go ahead and give that a nice toss. Make sure it's really, really well coated. I want to make sure that we get all of the seasoning all the way throughout those onions. That's going to be important to make sure we get some really good flavor. All right, from here, I'm going to go ahead and put the onions onto the bottom of a pre-sprayed with cooking spray roasting pan. So here I have my hotel pan. The onions are spread out on the bottom. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and add our chicken in just a moment. Once our pan is ready to go, we're going to go ahead and we're going to season our chicken. So have the chicken in a bowl. Now we'll go ahead and we'll add a little bit of oil, about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons, just looking to give enough to coat the chicken. Really want to make sure that there's enough on there to help coat the chicken and get the seasoning spread out. So we're going to add about teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of salt. Going ahead and adding our garlic, which we've already minced. Now I'm going to add a little Cajun seasoning. So this one that I use is called Slap Your Mama. This is just going to add a little bit of heat. You can use any Cajun seasoning or not. It's up to you. This is something I add just for, like I said, again, adds a little flavor, a little bit of heat to the dish. Just kind of gives it another element of flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in, about a teaspoon of seasoning. Get a few cracks of fresh ground pepper. And now we'll go ahead and we'll start to mix. So I'm going to put some gloves on because always important to make sure that we're staying clean, right? Sanitary. We don't want to have any possibility of salmonella. So we want to go ahead and make sure that we're working as clean as we possibly can. We're going to go ahead and really mix that together well. Make sure that those seasonings are really well incorporated. Making sure that there's not one piece where the salt is heavier than the others, right? Really want to be careful to make sure that everything's really well incorporated. So just give that a really good mix and get that all set up and seasoned, ready to go. All right, now once we have our chicken seasoned, we're ready to go ahead at that point and add it to our pan. So want to make sure you leave everything in a nice even layer, carefully making sure that the skin is nicely spread out among the chicken. And then once we have all of the pieces neatly lined up in the pan, nothing on top of each other, at this point, we'll go ahead and we'll put the chicken into the oven. So we have our oven preheated at 400 degrees, and we're going to put this in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. So after 25 to 30 minutes, or when the chicken reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit, we're ready to go ahead and take that out of the oven. Looking for a really nice crispy skin. You can see the juices in the bottom of the pan, which are going to be very, very flavorful. Right, so go ahead, put that into a serving dish, and you are good to go.